fashion and technology. While these words have vastly different connotations in our modern world, their combined scope in history was mostly related to warfare. That is because warfare in itself, at least till late medieval history, was dominated by the kings, nobles, and elites of the society. These wealthy groups had access to both fashionable items and technological progression, a fusion of which coalesced into intricate armor systems for better protection, and thus the chance of survival on the battlefield. So without further ado, let us take a gander at marvelous warrior armor ensembles from history you should know about. The above pictured armor is not a figment of the imagination of the illustrator but rather depicts the incredible specimen from Bronze Age, known as the Dendra Panoply. Named so because of the discovery of the earliest of these fascinating specimens in the village of Dendra in the Argolid. See actual image here. The warrior armor system was developed from the late Mycenaean period, or at least after the 15th century BC, and probably used by the elite members of the Mycenaean army who rode into battle in chariots. This uncovered specimen in question consists of 15 separate sheets of beaten bronze that were fastened by leather bands. The main cuirass in itself comprised two different facades, for the front part and rear part of the torso, that were joined by a hinge. Additionally, the impressive warrior armor ensemble boasted big shoulder guards, triangular armpit guards, a deep neck guard, composed of a high bronze collar, and even greaves, padded with linen. So after all these pieces were set up, the complete panoply equated to a robust, full-covered plated body armor that may have been imposing in its scope, though surely cumbersome in its usage. The Oyoroi or Great Armor was specifically designed for mounted archers, who often formed the elite forces of the Japanese samurai. In essence, the Great Warrior Armor was reserved for the high-ranking warriors, bushi, especially after the 10th century AD, when such elite troops performed the tactical tasks of cavalrymen and mobile archers on the battlefield. In spite of such intricate arrangements within the samurai warrior armor, the visually striking part of the Oyoroi arguably relates to its leather finish. This printed leather was called the egawa, and one of its elements known as the tsurubushiri provided the illusion of full-plate armor. This entire panoply, weighing over 65 pounds, was complemented by the mengu or facial armor that was either crafted from iron or lacquered leather. A unit made famous by the real-time strategy game Age of Empires II, the Jaguar warriors belonged to the elite military order fielded by the Aztecs. Accompanied by their brethren, the Eagle warriors, the Jaguar warriors, known as Ocelotl in classical Nahuatl, were chosen on the basis of their bravery and ability to capture enemy warriors, for later sacrifice, and thus were placed at the fore of their war band. Interestingly enough, unlike many contemporary societies, this collective elite force, sometimes referred to as the Kuaocelotl, was composed of members from both the nobility and the commoner class, which in itself suggests the importance of training, ferocity, and bravery in the Aztec society over class-based warfare. However, it should also be noted that most members of the Jaguar warrior military order expected to be granted lands and titles by their lords, thus in many ways mirroring the knightly class of the medieval Europeans. As for the warrior armor, the battle-hardened members of the elite Aztec military orders, including the Huachic, or shorn ones, were often dressed in regalia that matched their names. Suffice it to say, the Jaguar warrior draped themselves in pelts of jaguars, pumas, a practice that not only enhanced their elevated visual impact but also pertained to a ritualistic angle wherein the warrior believed that he partly imbibed the strength of the predator animal. It can be hypothesized that these elite warriors also wore a type of quilted cotton armor, known as ichkawapili, under their animal pelts, while higher-ranking members tended to flaunt their additional apparel in the form of colored feathers and plumes. Such boisterous scopes of visual exhibitions were complemented by deadly weapons like the makuawitl, roughly translating to hungry wood, a wooden sword with sharp obsidian blades drilled into its sides. Intriguingly, the first possible evidence of elephants being trained for war comes from China, during the period of the Shang dynasty from 1600 to 1100 BC. And while wild Chinese elephants dwindled in numbers, and Mesopotamian elephants became extinct, circa 500 BC, the legacy of war elephants was carried forth by Indians, Persians, and subsequently the Greek successor states and even Carthaginians in the ancient times. However, the armored war elephants in question here hark back to the later medieval times of India, corresponding to the period between the 15th to 16th centuries, when the development of gunpowder weaponry was still in its relatively nascent stage. To that end, the extensive armor system of these highly valued war elephants, mostly comprising the male gender, consisted of intricately crafted face masks with strategic vision holes that protected the ears and trunk of the humongous animal. In fact, the exhibited war elephant armor at the Royal Armories in Leeds has headgear so heavy that it requires 3 attendants to lift that particular section. As for the main body armor in itself, the panoply was crafted from sheet iron panels and chainmail woven across cloth or leather. And like in the case of the earlier mentioned cataphract warrior armor, this sturdy sheath was accompanied by a padded cloth or leather on the inside, to keep the animal, partly, comfortable. The ubiquitous Lorica segmentata is one of the tropes of ancient Rome, with its fair share of, often anachronistic, portrayals in popular culture. But beyond its familiarity and faux name, the very Latin term Lorica segmentata was coined in the 16th century and literally translates to armor in pieces. The warrior armor design in itself was a testament to Roman ingenuity. Used after the 1st century BC till the 3rd century AD, thus corresponding to the apical period of the Roman Empire, the panoply combined the advantages of heavy protection offered by plate armor and flexibility due to its varying sections. In terms of design, the armor was composed of metallic strips that were horizontally arranged in an overlapping manner in the downward direction. The setup basically enclosed the torso in 2 halves, with fastenings both at the front and back. Additionally, the armor was reinforced by shoulder guards along with breast and back plates, thus accounting for the protection of the upper body and shoulders.